We've all heard women are from Venus and men are from Mars. And there's quite a bit of truth in this, actually. um, Not completely, but there is certainly some truth to this. Mars is a very masculine planet. Its energy, the beings that have lived there have been expressions of the masculine archetype. Venus is the reverse, a very feminine planet, a water planet. The beings that have lived there have been exceedingly feminine. Earth, the sister planet to Venus, or this is a twin planet system, was also a water planet, although it is now existing in a slightly less watery state. But it's important to understand, when looking at the difference between men and women, that first we recognize that the postmodern man is having an orgasm primarily through the mental body. Okay, now we understand it is through the physical body too, of course, but it is the conjunction of the mental and physical bodies primarily. Whereas the woman is primarily having the orgasm through the conjunction of the emotional and the physical body, with some amount of mental body in there also. For the man, the emotional body is generally not involved. It can be, but it is generally not involved. Okay? And often for some men, depending on how masculine their structure is, and same with the women. The women who are involving more of the mental body, that they have more masculine sexual patterns that they've picked up. Okay? All these sexual patterns are simply expressions of energetic, of attempts at the being to raise their energetic system generally. This is what orgasm is for. For example, if we look at S&M, right? And for anyone who's not into S&M, and I'm not, I never have been, although if I had been, I would not be now, because now I do not hold the majority of the distortions that Brian held. So, but I've never been into that. But I also had trouble understanding how someone could be into it, why someone would be into it. I could see that the mental correlation, and we can say, okay, trauma causes this or this and causes this, but that doesn't actually explain it. Like that doesn't create understanding in you. Something most people don't recognize, actually, that learning information does not create understanding. Someone can give you an answer and you can go, oh, that's why. And for most people that are deeply brainwashed, that is in fact what they consider learning and understanding. That's an important point too. I should have put that in that last book about the school, in the last video book, the last video about the schools, because it's no small thing that they're doing. Understand, even if everyone involved in the school system is perfectly altruistic, it doesn't matter, because the system itself is corruptive. The method, the view, I don't know how to say it, the way they go about teaching and looking at knowledge and learning and what they consider knowledge, okay? This is extremely damaging. Did any of us that were, all of us were born as loving little children. All of us were born unconditionally loving, without any racism, without any biases towards this kind of girl or that kind of girl or this kind of guy or that kind of guy or this kind of group or that kind of group. None of us hated anyone. None of us were jealous. None of us were guilty. None of us were scared. We were loving. We were curious. We were amazed. That's what they took from you. You understand this? That's no small thing. It's no small thing. Because to tell someone that this kind of critical thinking that can be, that only something that can be proven in a specific kind of way to the mind in a physical way, and even that's a sham, because they set all the parameters, they set all the preconditions to keep things in limited ways and perspectives, very deliberately. Okay, an easy way to understand this is, for instance, if we look at a tree, okay? Now, I've said this before, a tree is half of your lungs. We are completely dependent upon them to exist on this planet, yes? That makes them incredibly important, and yet we treat them as if it's an object we can do anything we want. No respect for it as a conscious being. And none of us knows everything there is to know about a tree. In fact, there's much more about trees that we don't know. Now, any rational or any intelligent person should be able to understand this. I shouldn't say rational. I should say any intelligent person, but they've taught us to say rational, They've literally taught us to say it. So, but any intelligent person should be able to see that with all of reality, there is more that you don't know than you do. But once you accept what they taught you in school, that this is a tree, once they put a label on it, and this method of learning, and they rewarded you for understanding this is a tree. Remember, as a child, the minute you said, "Oh, that's a tree," they gave you a gold star. They gave you a pat on the head, And those that couldn't say it was a tree fast enough, they were held back, or they were ostracized. This is programming, you understand? Because the minute you think it's a tree, you miss everything else it could be. The minute you think you know what something is, you stop looking at it. You stop actually learning. That's what they taught you to do, to stop learning. They taught you one of the biggest lies they taught you in school. One of the biggest lies they taught you in school was that truth, that knowledge is data. That's a big lie. That's a big perspective shift. I mean, that greatly alters your reality. You need to understand this. That greatly alters your reality. Because everything that's written in a book, but any subject, any time, I don't care. But especially history, right? Which in politics and government and social things, right? And psychology and all this type of understanding, right? The only thing that it's a little bit less the only thing it's more accurate with, closer to the truth, is mathematics, geometry, things like that, And these are still conceptual frameworks and ways of understanding things. But if we look at history, for instance, we look at a book written in World War II. Written about World War II, I mean. Who wrote that book? Whose perspective is it from? Because I guarantee you, the Jews have a different perspective, the French have a different perspective, the Germans have a different perspective, the Americans have a different perspective. See, that's my point. So you can't take any of this as truth. If I tell you a story, if I tell you what happened, I can tell you the truth as I perceived it. But if you go down to write that account as actual truth, it negates the viewpoint of the little child across the street. It negates the equally valid viewpoint of the girl down the street. and all the animals and all the other things and the gods and the angels and all the other perspectives that are equally valid and often more valid and more true than your limited one. Especially once they start to brainwash you and make you more limited. And these are who teach each other more and more limited things. This whole system of learning through memorization and repeating back, that's not learning. That's not knowledge. That doesn't make you smarter. And that's vital to understand too, because that's a very real thing. Everyone should know by now that your IQ goes down as you get older, unless you're awakening. My IQ is much higher than it was at other times in my life. Much, 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 much higher. Like off the charts high. And I know this because I was born technically, according to their standards, they rated me as a genius, okay? Didn't mean anything. I mean, I was severely emotionally handicapped, and I didn't fit in with their, I didn't care, I didn't believe anything, I didn't believe in their systems. But as I got older, my IQ went down. As I got more enmeshed in darkness, more enslaved by addictions and fear and shame and all these different things and anger, you know. Yeah, my IQ definitely went down. My limitations went down. You know, then I started to educate myself in prison finally, and I started with their sciences. I learned physics, chemistry. I had a 4.0, above a 4.0, learning it all by myself without any teachers through correspondence, mathematics. But then I started to realize the limitations of this knowledge too, you know. And now, from where I sit, it was nothing. It was just the opening. It was just the very gate to knowledge. What I was saying before about the S&M thing and how that works is, if you look at the map of consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins, you can see that shame and guilt, fear being the lowest ones, and then we move to anger. Well, what does this mean? This means that someone can take something that they were scared of, or excuse me, first, then it moves to desire, and then anger. Yeah, desire is below anger. So this means someone can take something that they're scared of, and then turn it into a fetish, into a desire to raise their consciousness, to get on top of it, to expand into a more expansive position about the situation. Once they come to grips with it, they will often get angry about the abuse involved and what caused them into this, and then they'll move up. Or if they've transferred fear into desire in a masculine way and gone the route of the sadist, then they will begin their journey down the path of darkness, you know, and they will move all the way up this ladder of consciousness to pride and stop, you know. And they will move on to a different scale, a scale of power without wisdom. Yeah. Or they will just get ground up repeatedly and get used in this life, you know, until they get recycled and their higher self clarifies them in another time and place. You know. The original thing I was saying about, I started all this, I went all the way off into the schools, and I started this by talking about you know, men and women, and understanding that for most men, they're having an orgasm through the mental body. For most women, they're having it through the emotional body. Okay. This is what wants to be brought to balance between the two, in truth, in a spiritual relationship. You know, in a spiritual relationship, in a spiritual path, the man will rebalance his sexual desires, and they will get transmuted into desires for love. Love will replace lust. greatly. Yeah. So as a woman, I would recognize that the majority of this men in this world are honestly not able to connect with their emotional body. Not at all. It's not a joke. They only, and what, even the emotions that we're seeing, that they're talking about, that they're speaking about, they're not emotions. You need to understand this. The mind can mimic emotions. The only emotions that most men are feeling is anger and fear and desire. Most men are not feeling love. They are not. That is why they are able to do such violence. And I hope every man hears that. I hope every man really hears that. Because the fact that you're able to do violence is not a virtue. It signals something. It signals the closing of your heart, which is your direct source to your higher intelligence, to power itself, to divinity itself, to your creator, and to your own happiness. It is the source of your own suffering and the cause of all the destruction in the world. It's no small thing. And so we can link this back to the schools again, because this is where it all happens. Although, of course, it happens in the home before we even go to the schools, because most parents are regurgitating the same crap that happened to them. I want all the parents to hear this. Just think about the stuff that you're saying to your kids, the things you're doing to your kids that your parents did to you, that you fucking hated. Excuse my language, that you hated. Okay? That's not a joke. We all like, this is the cliche, or I'm becoming my parents. Okay? It's not a joke. It's programming. You are being programmed. You're being conditioned. You are being enslaved. Make a free choice. Do the opposite. Do the opposite. Whether it seems right to society or not, do the opposite. Don't do the same thing again and again. Don't repeat their mistakes. Don't carry their burdens. You know, we all could right now be free. All of us, every human on the planet right now is fighting about stuff that their parents made up and that their parents made up. These are not our wars. Nobody today is fighting in a war that has anything to do with them. Not any nation, people, not anywhere in the world, whether it's over religion, whether it's over land, whether it's over race, it doesn't matter. It's not new ideas, and it's not yours. Somebody taught you to do this. Somebody taught you this was important. Somebody taught you this is worth doing what you're doing to each other. And it's not. It's not. We could right now just say, you know what? No more violence. No more killing. We're just going to love each other. We're just going to help each other. We're just going to prosper as a people. Easiest thing in the world. Easiest thing in the world to stop violence. If we could just stop seeing the value in it. If people could just stop realizing that they're not acting under their own free agency, but out of the ignorance of the past. So it's no small thing when you take a child who is at the vibration of unconditional love, and through programming and conditioning and indoctrination and forcing them into situations that don't fit for them at their pace or time, in some cookie cutter mold that's only meant to work for the most malleable of children. When you take a child from unconditional love, 500 on the Hawking scale, and drop them down to, where do we find most teenagers? You tell me that. We find most 18-year-olds getting out of high school. Where's their vibration at? They got the whole thing figured out, right? They're great, they're happy, they're loving. No, no, no. Kids are coming out of school confused, lost, with enormous amounts of stress, trying to fit into a world that makes no sense, trying to find a job in a collapsing market where they have no idea what's valuable and not. The only ones that feel any kind of drive or success or surety are those who have completely bitten the materialistic line and are willing to do whatever they need to do to make money, and have already stepped on enough of their fellow classmates and started to learn truly negative characteristics so that they can succeed in a negative world. That's severe programming, okay? Because remember, anyone who doesn't know about the Hawking scale of consciousness, or the logarithmic amount or value or difference of it, go back and check my videos called the Hawking scale of consciousness, levels of consciousness. There's a short one too where I compare an enlightened being to how many unenlightened beings they offset. Beings in fear vibration or shame vibration or whatever. Which is millions. That's my point. Because to drop a child from the vibration of unconditional love down to fear, down to shame, down to confusion, down to despair, that's a drop of millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of degrees or percentage. Like it's huge. It's huge. It's a world-changing drop. It's a reality-shifting drop. It's a drop that allows them to keep us enslaved. So it's no small thing. So I don't care if you're a teacher and you're listening to this and you get in, and maybe, hopefully you understand what I'm saying, but likely you don't, or you won't be able to see it right away, and you probably get upset. But understand, I'm not attacking you or your personal motives or even your teaching methods, because these were taught to you. I hope you can see they were taught to you. I hope you can see that these aren't original ideas you have. I hope you can see that all of this happened to you when you were a child, and now you're doing it to other children. You didn't design the curriculum. You didn't design the way of thinking. You are a victim of this system. All the upholders of the system are victims of the system. And all of us growing up were indoctrinated into these patriarchal views, men and women, greatly, to accept the current views of society, you know, and the views that have always been that men are superior, men are the rational thinkers, men are the logical ones, you know. First of all, it is deep programming to think, to believe that rationality and logical thinking is the highest form of intelligence. Because, as I've said before, it is not bad, rationality. It's not bad, but rationality without, first of all, perspective, that it only works within this subset matrix. There are other realities that supersede any rational argument you can have here. Okay? Also, rationality without the heart's guidance, rationality without love, rationality without wisdom is incredibly destructive. And they don't teach that. No one teaches that. Everyone tries to make the rational thinker. We're trying to pump rational thinkers out in school, right? No one tries to teach the heart. No one tries to teach the balance. No one teaches the soul. No one teaches the spirit. We don't teach any of the subtler sciences, any of that. Teaching reality in this way with just this materialistic view and slice of reality. No, that is destructive. Highly destructive. So, the viewpoint that men are superior because they can embrace rational thinking to the exclusion of their emotional body is not a virtue. It's not a virtue, and it's not real. That is a distortion, for sure. That has destroyed whole civilizations, whole worlds. That's what happened to the Greys. The exclusion of the emotional body. Yeah. So, first of all, we need to recognize and for every woman, understand that you have taken on a good bit of this masculine programming also. This masculine programming doesn't only go into male bodies. So a lot of this programming has gone into you to make you doubt yourself, to make you feel less independent, to make you feel less wise and intelligent, to not trust your own instincts, to not trust your own intuition, because what they don't want you to know is there are other forms of intelligence that far supersede the rational thinking. Every mother knows when something happens to their child, right? I mean, often. And the rational mind can have almost no explanation for it. It can't understand it other than to say it's not there. That is the rational thinker's way of explaining the 90% of things out here that it can't understand and see. To say they're not there, to minimize them, to call them crazy, to subjugate them, to destroy them, to hide them, to deny them, to lie. The rational thinker sees no problem in deception if it serves an end. The rational thinker cannot discern what is right and wrong. It needs the heart. The man needs the woman. The masculine within you needs the feminine within you. The father needs the mother. The mother needs the father also. But it is within the mother's power to heal all this. The women have to take their power back. The women have to take their power back. Your power supersedes the masculine framework. The power of love is greater than the power of light. It's no joke. It's no joke.